There is a $1 glass jar sitting in the canning aisle of every Walmart in America that will keep every round you own firing with absolute lethal reliability for the next 20 years. And the United States Army has known this since 1943. But before we get to why, picture this, brother. It's a late November morning, frost on the oak leaves, your breath hanging like smoke in the freezing air. The monster buck you've been tracking on trail cams for 3 seasons finally steps broadside at 60 yards. The wind is perfect. You settle the crosshairs right behind his shoulder, take a half breath, exhale, and squeeze. Click. Not a bang. A devastating, hollow, life-ruining click. The buck snaps his head up, flags his tail, and vanishes into the timber forever. You lower your rifle, hands shaking. You think it was just a bad batch of factory ammo. You think it was just terrible luck. Here is the honest truth. It wasn't bad luck, and it wasn't a factory defect. It was your $60 plastic ammo box, the one with the tactical latches and the rubber O-ring that the industry promised would protect your rounds. It didn't protect them. It assassinated them. And today, this video is going to show you exactly how and exactly why a $1.50 mason jar destroys a $60 polymer crate, using the same hermetic science the Army used in the jungles of the Pacific in 1943. Welcome back to HuntForge. Lock in, hunters. We are about to forge some serious truth. Let's talk about how a $1.7 billion ammunition storage industry has trained every hunter in this country to fail. You walk into any big box sporting goods store, Cabela's, Bass Pro, Academy, and you see aisles lined with rugged, olive-drab plastic ammunition cases. They've got heavy-duty latches, reinforced hinges, and thick rubber O-rings. They look like they could survive a nuclear blast. The marketing tells you this is the ultimate protection for your expensive hunting rounds. They stamp mil-spec on the side and charge you $30 to $60 for a molded box that costs them about $2.40 to manufacture overseas. What the industry buried is that a sealed plastic box without an active desiccant doesn't keep moisture out. It locks the moisture in. Think about it. If you open that tactical plastic crate on a humid August afternoon in Tennessee, Arkansas, or anywhere in the Gulf states, and then snap those heavy latches shut, you just trapped 60% or 70% relative humidity inside that box. And because of that fancy rubber O-ring, the one they brag about on the packaging, that moisture now has absolutely nowhere to go. It is trapped in a sealed microclimate with your ammunition. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is the material itself. Modern injection-molded polypropylene and polyethylene, the exact plastics used in nearly every so-called tactical ammo crate on the market, are not truly impermeable. From a polymer science perspective, these plastics allow the incredibly slow but measurable diffusion of water vapor through their microscopic molecular structure over months and years of storage. The industry knows this. Every plastics engineer who has ever worked on packaging knows this. But they never print it on the box. Now, stack the next layer of failure on top. Most hunters leave their rounds sitting in the original factory cardboard boxes inside those plastic crates. Cardboard is essentially a sponge. It is made of cellulose fibers that wick moisture right out of the trapped air and hold it directly against your brass and your primers. In a humid, unclimate-controlled space like your garage, a shed, or a hunting camp outbuilding, It takes only 30 to 90 days for that humidity to begin measurably degrading the reliability of your primers. Over 50% relative humidity, primers start absorbing water molecules into their chemical compound. And once a primer gets damp, the lead stiffnate and barium nitrate inside it begin to break down at the molecular level. You won't see it from the outside. The brass still looks clean. The bullet still seats tight. A misfire in the field never announces itself in advance. It waits for the worst possible moment, when that trophy deer is standing broadside in your sights, to completely break your heart. And here is what makes this a $1.7 billion industry conspiracy, not just a design flaw. They already have the solution. Active desiccants have existed since the 1940s. The Army solved this problem over 80 years ago. But if the industry put a 15-cent packet of silica gel inside every ammo crate at the factory, they would lose the entire aftermarket of replacement desiccant packs, humidity indicator cards, electric dehumidifier rods, and climate-controlled gun safes that they sell you to fix the problem they created. They designed the failure, then they sold you the cure. And they've been collecting on both ends for decades. So, how does a hunter defeat his #1 invisible enemy? Moisture? The science is actually simple, and it comes down to two components: an impermeable barrier and a regenerative desiccant. Let's start with the barrier. Your grandfather never needed a fancy, injection-molded $60 polymer crate to keep his powder dry. He understood the absolute, undeniable value of a simple glass jar. From a material science perspective, glass is an amorphous solid, a non-crystalline structure formed by the rapid cooling of molten silica that is essentially 100% impermeable to gases and water vapor at any temperature you will ever encounter in a garage, a basement, or a buried cache. Unlike those modern polypropylene ammo crates, which allow the slow permeation of H2O molecules through their polymer chains over time, glass stops moisture dead in its tracks at the molecular level. Zero diffusion, zero permeation. Furthermore, glass is chemically inert. It will never off-gas volatile organic compounds that can react with your primer sealants or case neck lacquers over months and years of storage. But a glass jar alone isn't enough, because you still have to deal with the humid air you trap inside when you screw the lid on. This is where the magic happens. You need a desiccant. But not just any desiccant. You need silicon dioxide, highly porous SiO2 silica gel crystals. This isn't some backwoods voodoo. This is hard science. In fact, this exact same chemical principle is trusted at the highest levels of American aerospace research. Researchers at the University of Arizona rely on these exact same advanced silica-based desiccants to protect hypersensitive optical equipment for NASA's Pioneers program, studying the intergalactic medium. If silicon dioxide desiccation works for NASA's optics in the vacuum of space, it is going to work for your .30-06 rounds in a deer stand. Silica gel doesn't absorb water like a paper towel soaking up a spill. It works through adsorption, a fundamentally different process where moisture molecules are trapped onto the vast internal surface area of the silica crystal's microscopic pore structure. A single gram of silica gel contains approximately 800 square meters of internal surface area. That is roughly the size of 3 tennis courts packed into a crystal smaller than a pea. Every one of those microscopic pores acts as a molecular trap for water, pulling humidity out of the air and locking it in place. But here is the ultimate hack, and this is what the industry truly does not want you to know. You don't need to buy expensive, heavily marketed, tactical desiccant packs. You just need to walk into the pet aisle at Walmart and buy a bag of unscented crystal cat litter. It is the exact same chemical compound, 100% pure silica gel. The only difference between the bag in the pet aisle and the premium desiccant packs sold in the gun section is the label and the price tag. One costs $7 for 8 pounds. The other costs $12 for 8 ounces.
Let's look at a real-world test. If you put a digital hygrometer inside a standard factory cardboard ammo box in an unventilated shop overnight, it reads 59% relative humidity. If you put it in a $30 plastic ammo can with the rubber O-ring sealed tight and no desiccant, it reads 57%. 2%. That's all the protection your $30 tactical crate is buying you. 2 measly percentage points. But if you put your ammo in a standard ball mason jar with just 1 tablespoon of activated silica crystal, the humidity plummets to a bone-dry 14%. 14% relative humidity. That is the magic number. At that level, primer compounds remain chemically stable indefinitely. The military has used that exact threshold, below 15% RH, as their standard for reliable, long-term small arms ammunition storage since the 1940s. And here is the price comparison that should make your blood boil. You can achieve absolute military-grade, zero-moisture perfection for $1.50 instead of $60. $1.50 for the glass jar, pennies for the silica crystals. $1.50 versus $60. Let that ratio sink in. Here's an honest confession that still stings. 2 years ago, this channel opened a plastic ammo can that had been sealed with full confidence. One of those $40 tactical crates with the heavy latches and the O-ring that seemed bomb-proof. Inside were premium .308 hunting rounds, stored for about 14 months. When those latches popped, a faint green film was creeping across the brass. Verdigris. Copper-based corrosion caused by trapped moisture reacting with the alloy. 60 rounds of premium .308 gone. 60 rounds that any hunter would have given anything for during the 2020 ammunition shortage, when prices doubled and shelves went empty for months. That failure sent this research down a rabbit hole that led all the way back to 1943, to the jungles of the South Pacific, and to a 71-year-old Vietnam veteran named Virgil Keane, who has not lost a single round of ammunition in over a decade.
To truly understand why this method is bulletproof, we have to go back to the beginning, to military history. Prior to the 1940s, ammunition storage in the United States was, frankly, a mess. Large-scale magazine safety only became a serious concern after the catastrophic 1926 Lake Denmark explosion, which forced the military to completely rethink its storage facility designs and packaging protocols. But by 1943, as the United States was fighting a brutal two-front world war, the Ordnance Department faced a massive logistical nightmare they hadn't fully anticipated. They were shipping billions of rounds of ammunition into the hyper-humid, sweltering environments of the South Pacific, New Guinea, Guadalcanal, the Philippines, where relative humidity regularly exceeded 90% and temperatures stayed above 85 degrees Fahrenheit for months straight. Standard cardboard packaging and wooden shipping crates were failing catastrophically. Primers were degrading, misfires were spiking. Soldiers were pulling triggers and hearing that same devastating click. The military shifted to a strict protocol of hermetic sealing, using sealed metal containers packed with active desiccants to create a bone-dry microenvironment around the ammunition. They realized,
through blood and failure, that to keep a cartridge lethal and reliable, you must seal it completely away from the atmosphere it is sitting in. It is the same principle, the same chemistry, and the same physics that a $1.50 mason jar replicates perfectly on your workbench at home.
Now meet the two people who proved this method beyond any shadow of doubt. The first is Virgil Keane. Virgil is 71 years old with over 50 years of hunting experience under his belt. More importantly, Virgil served 2 tours in Vietnam as a supply sergeant in the United States Army. Sergeant Keane was directly responsible for maintaining full ammunition readiness for his unit in one of the most brutally humid operating environments on planet Earth, the Mekong Delta, where monsoon humidity regularly hit 95% and stayed there for weeks. Across 18 consecutive months of active deployment, Sergeant Keane's units never experienced a single ammunition misfire in the field. Not one. Why? Because the Army didn't store ammo in cardboard boxes in tropical climates. They used sealed metal containers with desiccants to completely isolate every round from the monsoon humidity that was destroying South Vietnamese stockpiles all around them. Virgil told a story that stays with anyone who hears it. He said he watched primers fail on South Vietnamese ammunition that had been stored in standard cardboard boxes for as little as 3 weeks in monsoon conditions. 3 weeks. That is all it took to render a bullet completely useless. As Virgil put it, seeing a round fail at the exact moment a soldier needed it to save his life is the kind of operational outcome you never forget. It changes how you think about storage for the rest of your life. When Virgil came home from his second tour in 1971, he never stored his hunting ammunition in cardboard again. He couldn't afford military-grade hermetic metal cans on a veteran's salary, so he adapted the 1943 military protocol using what he had: glass mason jars and silica crystals from the hardware store. For the last 12 years, Virgil has stored his 9mm .308 and .30-06 hunting rounds exclusively in this mason jar system. In over a decade, he has experienced exactly 0 misfires. He has found absolutely 0 green verdigris corrosion on his brass, which is the telltale chemical signature that moisture has compromised a round. Meanwhile, primers from the exact same production lot, stored in factory cardboard in his unclimate-controlled Arkansas shop, produced 3 failures out of 100 rounds in just 14 months. But one voice is never enough to build an unbreakable case. So here is the second witness. Meet Dr. Elaine Hargrove. Dr. Hargrove is a materials chemist with 27 years of experience in environmental degradation of energetic compounds, the scientific term for how propellants and primer mixtures break down when exposed to heat, light, and moisture. She spent 14 years working in federal research before moving to the private sector. Dr. Hargrove confirmed what Virgil learned in the field. Lead stiffnate, the primary compound in modern centerfire primers, begins measurable hygroscopic degradation at sustained relative humidity above 50%. Once absorbed, the water molecules disrupt the crystal lattice of the compound, reducing its sensitivity to impact detonation. In plain English, wet primers don't bang. She also confirmed the glass barrier principle. Borosilicate and soda-lime glass, she explained, are effectively 0 permeability barriers to water vapor at ambient conditions. Polypropylene, by contrast, has a measurable water vapor transmission rate, small but non-zero over time. For long-term ammunition storage, the difference is binary. Glass works, plastic eventually fails. The proof is in the firing pin. 2 witnesses, 2 fields, 1 conclusion. So, how does a hunter implement this veteran's secret and this scientist's confirmation?
It is incredibly cheap and incredibly easy, but the protocol must be followed exactly. Step 1. The supplies. Go to the canning section of your local store and buy a case of 32-ounce or 64-ounce wide-mouth ball or mason jars. They cost about $1.50 each. Next, go to the pet aisle and buy an 8-pound bag of unscented crystal cat litter for around $7. Make absolutely sure the ingredient label says 100% silica gel. No additives, no fragrance, no baking soda blends. Pure SiO2. Step 2. The preparation. Before using the silica, it must be driven to its absolute maximum adsorption capacity. Spread the crystals in a single layer on a baking sheet and bake them in the oven at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 full hour. This forces the silica gel to release any ambient moisture it absorbed during manufacturing and shipping, driving it off as water vapor. Once they cool to room temperature, those crystals are bone dry, chemically thirsty, and ready to pull every molecule of humidity out of whatever environment they are placed in. Step 3. The ratio. Drop the activated silica crystals directly into the bottom of a clean, dry mason jar. The golden ratio, the one Virgil has used for 12 years with 0 failures, is 1 tablespoon of silica crystal per 30 rounds of large rifle-caliber ammunition, or 2 tablespoons per 50 rounds of pistol or rimfire. This ratio maintains that military-grade 14% relative humidity threshold indefinitely inside the sealed jar. Step 4. The packing. Drop the rounds into the jar on top of the silica layer. For those who prefer extra caution, the silica can be placed in a small, breathable cloth bag, a piece of muslin or cheesecloth, to prevent any crystal dust from contacting the brass, though pure silica gel is chemically inert and will not harm metal on contact. Place the standard 2-piece lid and metal band on the jar and crank it down tight. Label the glass with a piece of masking tape showing 3 things: the caliber, the date sealed, and the round count. This takes 5 seconds and will save you from ever guessing what's inside. Now, a quick word on caching, burying ammunition underground, which is a massive trend in the survivalist and preparedness community right now. The title of this video mentions buried ammo for a reason. Burial offers something no garage or basement can: incredible geothermal temperature stability. Soil temperature at just 3 feet below the surface remains constantly cool, typically between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit year-round in most of the continental United States. This prevents the nitrocellulose propellant powder inside the casing from experiencing the thermal cycling that accelerates chemical degradation over years of storage. However, a critical warning. While the glass mason jar is the ultimate moisture barrier, it is physically fragile. If this system goes underground, the weight of the soil above, known as overburden, and the shifting of the ground during freeze-thaw cycles can easily crush a glass jar over time. For a buried cache, the sealed mason jars must be placed inside a rigid outer container, a capped PVC pipe, a sealed heavy-duty steel ammo can, or even a section of thick-wall drainage pipe to protect the glass from physical crushing forces. Do that correctly, and a buried ammo cache will outlive the hunter who built it. The beauty of this entire system is that it is 100% regenerable. Once a year, about 90 days before deer season opens, crack open the jars and inspect the rounds. If you use indicating silica gel, the variety that contains a small amount of cobalt chloride indicator that changes color from blue to pink as it saturates with absorbed water, you can literally see with your eyes when it is time to recharge the desiccant. Just pour the crystals back on a baking sheet, bake them at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour, and they are brand new again. Virgil Keane has been regenerating the exact same $7 batch of silica crystals for over a decade. The crystals from his first bag are still working perfectly. That is $7 spent one time 12 years ago, protecting thousands of dollars worth of ammunition with zero failures. Meanwhile, the industry wants you to buy disposable desiccant packs at $4 each, replace them every 60 days, and keep feeding the machine forever. $1.50 versus $60. Regenerable crystals versus disposable packs. Zero misfires versus gambling with your season. The math is not complicated. The industry just prays you never do it.
Remember that click? That hollow, heart-stopping click from the opening of this video. Virgil Keane heard that sound in Vietnam, not on a deer stand, but in a jungle where it meant something far worse than a missed trophy. He swore he would never hear it again. And for 12 years, storing his hunting rounds in $1.50 mason jars packed with pennies worth of silica crystals, he never has. Dr. Hargrove confirmed the chemistry. The 1943 United States Army wrote the protocol, and now every hunter watching this holds every piece of it. Your grandfather never needed a $60 injection-molded polymer crate with a tactical latch and a marketing department behind it to keep his powder dry. He needed glass, silica, and the common sense that a multi-billion-dollar industry has spent decades trying to erase from your memory. That knowledge almost died. It almost disappeared under an avalanche of camo-painted plastic and rubber O-rings and slick packaging designed to look military without performing like it. But it didn't die today, because you watched this video, and now you carry it. So this is not a request to subscribe to support a YouTube channel. This is not about tapping a button for the algorithm. This is a call to make sure this knowledge survives. Every hunter who hits that subscribe button is one more set of hands holding the line between what our grandfathers knew and what the industry wants us to forget. Every share, every comment, every hunter you send this video to is another crack in the wall they've built around the truth. Build your mason jar ammo vault this weekend. Drop a comment down below and tell us how many rounds you're sealing. Stay sharp, stay lethal, keep your powder dry, and we will see you out in the timber. This is HuntForge, signing off.